Well, good morning or good afternoon, depending where you are, and welcome to today's Cichlids and Coffee. And of course, it's a lot more than cichlids, but it's definitely includes coffee. And I hope you're having a cup, preferably out of one of my cichlids and coffee cups. Oh yeah. So I've been watching you chat and chat with each other, which is always a lot of fun. And I'd just like to welcome my wonderful moderators here, Salient Aquatics, Cichlid Kings, and GP Gurvinder's in the house. And I think I saw Dennis, I saw Denny, Rudell, Vibes Aquatics. So a special shout out and welcome to my moderators who help keep things on track and family friendly. So this is a family hobby. So let's hey, Cat Sailor in the house, Angelo's in the house, and good group of folks here. Angelo looking forward to some football. Yeah, it's man, win or go home, right? And Z-Zip, NJW, Paul Newman in the house, John Cox. Hi, John. And Davey Larson and hey, Frank Gonzalez in the house. And let's see. Peace and Haps Forever has joined in, and Fishy Dior. When I hear that name, I think of a fish carrying like an expensive handbag. Fishy Dior. And but thank you for sitting in, and blessings to you as well. Henry Chavez in the house. And all right. First live stream I've caught. Nick. Hey, Nick. Welcome to the first live stream. And Gabriel's Glass Boxes. Love that name. So we have a few things to talk about. Mr. Kevin, what is this? Mr. Kevin KJ 2002. Welcome. Billy D. Boy, I'm seeing some new names here. That's exciting. That's very, very exciting. And of course, we keep growing and creeping up on 5,000 or 50,000 subscribers, and that's very, very, very exciting. So more folks are getting on. Let's give them a chance. I have a few things to talk about today. The usual. We'll go ahead and get into your thoughts, your questions. That'll be the key focus of today's live stream. But I also want to talk about a special new discount code for the Cichlid Shack. It's going to be exciting and based on a survey that was conducted. Edgar Rivera tells us that it is snowy in New York. We had a little dusting yesterday, and but nothing major. We did have a beautiful white Christmas here, but we're not. My son sent me some photos from Lake Tahoe. I think they had like 6 feet of snow or something. crazy weather conditions there, but perfect if you're a snowboarder like he is. It was perfect conditions. Jared working on second tank setup during the live stream. Okay, Jared, if you need some help, ask a question of the group. That's what we're here for. Darren in the house. Let's see here. Darren Bronell. Hope I pronounced that right. Bronell. Hello to you, Darren. Gabriel's Glass, Edgar. All right, more folks are jumping on. That's great. So let's do the official start, and then we'll get into some of the special codes that are now available to you from the Cichlid Shack, and also get into talking about your questions. Let's talk about fish, filtration, media, tanks. Well, let's go ahead and do the official start. So I was going to talk today mostly about tank sizes. I was working on the 300 gallon. Some of you saw the video on what I do to maintain the 300 gallon, and I included just about every step except working on the sump and the canister. I didn't like service the filters, but I did a servicing of the aquarium, and I hope you got something out of that video. But and then I had to do a cleaning of the little 5-gallon that I have those baby plecos in, and the betta tank, and the 20 tall with the live bearers. And I said, boy, it's really kind of a different game when you work on a large tank versus a small tank. And I started thinking about it. I said, well, maybe a topic for a live stream would be the advantages and disadvantages of different sizes of an aquarium. Like, what's the big plus on a big tank? I mean, for a big tank, what you have there is you have a lot of it's forgiving. And by that, what I mean is, and I'm not suggesting you do this, please don't do this, but you could put a little bit of ammonia, probably, a cap full of ammonia into this 300-gallon, and the fish probably wouldn't change much or wouldn't react much. You put a cap full of ammonia in the 5-gallon, and you'd have all dead fish within probably an hour. So a large tank is very forgiving, and it has a lot more dilution, especially when you figure in a sump, all that water volume. So small amounts of things that might normally be very, very deadly are not really going to impact the fish because they get so watered down, so diluted. And so a big tank is very, very forgiving. A big tank can go a little while longer. You could go a little while longer. It takes a lot to pollute and to make a larger tank as deadly as compared to how fast you can make a little 5-gallon. Those folks that keep beautiful planted 5 and 10-gallon aquariums that look pristine, and the fish are healthy, and the plants are vibrant, and in some cases the plants are doing all of the filtration. They don't even have a filter on it, right? The plants and the cleanup crew are doing the work, and my hat's off to those people, because one small hiccup and the tank pollutes. It'll pollute very, very rapidly. So whereas a larger tank, you have to really work once it gets established. Now, and I've got to add that because that's important. Once the tank becomes what we commonly call seasoned or mature, then at that point you've got that wiggle room. You've got, in the very beginning of any tank size, 5-gallon, 10-gallon, 500-gallon. In the very, very beginning, you have a fragile ecosystem, and that ecosystem can be impacted by a too much maintenance at once. You do all the filters, you do a deep gravel vac, and all of a sudden your fish die because there wasn't enough established beneficial bacteria, and you ended up with a sharp ammonia spike, and all your fish die off. And so and it wouldn't matter if it's small or large tank, but once a tank becomes seasoned and established, your chances of getting a positive outcome are much greater. I think one of the reasons why I've finally been able to keep rummy nose and neon tetras alive and thriving in that 55-gallon that I'm looking at right here behind me, or right in front of me here, behind the camera, is because that tank it's just mature. I mean, the substrate has a lot of life in it. It's just an established tank. It's seasoned, and so I go and pick up some neon tetras from a local fish store, and get them through quarantine and put them in. They do fine. Where normally neons and rummy noses would start to struggle for me for some reason. So it's been running for a while. It's had fish living in it for a while. I've got cories in there. I've got the lemon tetras, the Buenos Aires, the red serpas, and so a couple snails. I've got a beautiful big pagoda snail in there. So it's turning into a mature setup. The tank behind me, though relatively new by comparison, is a mature setup because I brought over media and substrate from an established tank. And so I immediately had a mature setup, a seasoned setup. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And hey, how's the video and the audio? Can I get a video and audio check from somebody? Tell me how it looks and how does it sound? And while we're doing that, while we're getting an audio check, I want to do a shout out to the members of the Garage Gang. These are members of the Garage Gang who support the channel on a monthly basis by joining the Patreon program. So a big shout out to my Garage Gang members. The details on the Garage Gang Patreon program are in the description under every one of my videos. Big shout out to them. If you'd like to pick up some channel swag to support the channel, coffee cups, mugs, t-shirts, sweatshirts, things like that, visit the Teespring store. And also, if you would like to support the channel another way, you can visit the Amazon store. And I have heaters and all kinds of good stuff there. Filters, media, food, everything. But if you just use that link to get to Amazon and then shop anywhere on Amazon after using that link, it supports the channel. It actually gives a very small percentage to the channel. So just a great way to support the channel. And it doesn't cost you anything, doesn't change your Amazon price. So just a couple things there, a couple commercials. And let me see here. AV is great. Thank you, Davey Larson. Thank you to all of you who replied to that. Davey Larson was the first one that I saw. Hey, Carrie in the house. Hi, Carrie. Thanks for joining us. R. Baglio in the house. Hey, Cichlid Shack. Good timing, my friend. I'm just about to talk about you. And DSGF, thank you for that, for giving me a sound check. Thomas Medina, thank you. All right. Cool Fins Aquatics, love that name. Cool Fins Aquatics. It's how funny how cool was a cool thing to say when I was a kid, and it's still cool. That's a kind of, you don't hear groovy too much anymore. All right. Now, who's this? Mr. Kevin. Let me see. I got that. Edgar Rivera, Jared Williams. All right. Some great folks in here. All right. So let's get into some more of this topic. So at any rate, I really encourage folks to get into bigger tanks, because the truth is that they are a little bit easier to maintain. They're not quite as sensitive once they get established. And the advantage of a bigger tank is that you're not limited. You're not limited. And by limited, what I mean is, you want to get into much larger fish. You want to have a massive planted community. Do you want to, the size of the tank is going to be a non-issue. Whereas as you start getting down, say, into 55 gallons, below 55 gallons, you're going to be limited. You're not going to be able to get into certain kinds of cichlids. Certainly discus would not be on the table. Certain fish are just going to be out of the question because they need more swim space. They put on too much size. Even certain kinds of plecos. So a larger tank pretty much leaves it up to whatever it is you want. What is it you want? And the larger tank it's a wide open canvas for you to do whatever you want with. Whereas smaller tanks are going to limit you. Now, you've got financial considerations, larger tanks, more money, right? More water, more electricity to heat, more electricity to filter, more filters, bigger filters. More fish means more food, larger amounts of water conditioning. So there's a cost factor, and of course there's the logistics of room. Do you have the room? Do you have a 7 foot by 4 foot footprint somewhere that you can put that kind of tank? And do you have the ability to support the weight of that tank? Is it going to go onto a supporting wall, with some beams underneath it, or you're going to have to like reinforce the floor? I mean, there's a lot of factors, things that you don't have to worry about when you're doing a 5 or 10 gallon tank. That can go into a bookshelf, onto a desktop. So at any rate, that was going to be the theme of today's talk, and then I kind of went, you know what? I think I'm going to keep it just wide open. Hey, Jerry. Hope that 180 gallon tank of yours is coming along nicely. Visit Jerry's fish room and see his 180 gallon tank. Hey, and thank you to the Aquarium Co-op for this. Check out this logo. That's Murphy. That's Murphy, the pufferfish from the Aquarium Co-op, and they have these polos now. And I really like polos because I have a bit of a thick neck, and t-shirts tend to choke me a little bit. But thank you, Aquarium Co-op, for the polo shirt and for those heaters. I'm going to be doing a video on the Aquarium Co-op heaters, and I'm really enjoying using those heaters, and I'll go over it with you when I release the video on the review of the heaters. So let's take a look here at a special announcement I want to make here. We're going to be doing something called Shaq's Choice, and I was debating whether we'd call it Shaq's Choice or Shaq's Weekly Choice, but this is where let me go ahead and move over to that screen. And okay, here we go. This is where James will pick out some fish that he really likes, and he'll send me some pictures, and then I will go ahead and include them in the stream, and we'll call it Shaq's Choice. And today I have a couple of them. I'll show them to you. They're really cool. We have a this is a calico ivory head Melodo, and it's 5.5 to 6 inches. Now, to get a fish, a cichlid. Now, for those of you who've grown out cichlids from like if you buy some like small, some little peewees, the amount of time it takes. I mean, it's a very long process, a lot of time, a lot of food. Some don't make it, right, for a variety of reasons, right? They get beat up or whatever, to actually end up with a 5 to 6 inch African cichlid. It's a long way to get there. So when I see a 5 to 6 inch fish, that's very pretty, and I understand why it costs what it costs. So this is the calico ivory head Melodo, one of the choices, and I'll show you a couple more. These are kind of cool. We have a this is a Skittles OB Peacock. This is from the Skittles line. And for those of you familiar with the Shaq, he has a particular kind of orange blotch, right? OB, that has been bred along the line to emphasize some of the blue, and the fish probably has a lot more blue in person. But you see here, it is a Skittles. It's 5.5 to 6 inches, and $65 for that one. And I'll show you one more. Each week I'll show you 3 of them that we can all salivate over. And here's a Fireline Melodo, and this bad boy is 5 inches, $59. Look at the egg spots on them, beautiful. And again, these fish are much more shocking in person. The camera doesn't do them justice. I mean, they were grabbed out of a tank and put into a container. You can see the container in the background, and then photographed. So we had a little bit of coloring down, a little bit of reaction on the part of the fish, but beautiful fish. And so again, if you want big fish right away, I mean, you have the route of growing them out, which can take a couple years. You end up with, sometimes you'll end up with a female. Sometimes they don't make it along the way, in which case you have to replace them with a comparable fish at a comparable size, which might be hard to locate. So if you want to start off with large colored up fish right away, you have to go to a vendor like the Shack. Now, we're going to be changing the code. Now, for those of you who used the code in the past, thank you so much. I think we found a good number of you had used the Shack Attack code. The Shack Attack code is actually going to go away. So the Shack Attack 10, which was for food and products, and Shack Attack 15, 10% and 15% discount on fish orders over $100 on Shack Attack 15. That code is going to end the 31st. So if you've been thinking about using the Shack Attack code, use it before the 31st, or else it's not going to be valid anymore. In the meantime, you can use the new code. You can only use one code, right? But you can use the new code, which is lowercase Ben Southwest 50. Ben Southwest 50, and you'll get a flat rate of about of $50. I think it's $49.99. A flat rate on orders up to 50 pounds. Up to 50 pounds. Now, normally air cargo is $69, I think. $70, I think, for air cargo. And air cargo is if you're dealing with expensive, high quality fish, what you want is air cargo. Ideally, Southwest Air Cargo, they have it down, they have it nailed. Your fish are, you get a notice, your fish are shipped, they're taken to air cargo, they're handed over the counter to somebody, and those fish go into an airplane and are delivered to your airport. You then need to go to the Southwest Air Cargo, pick it up, and take it home. But you're getting it, it's almost like you did a long drive to a fish store. They're packed in styrofoam, they're heat packed, there's little heat packets in the box. They're packed with oxygen, pure oxygen. And so, and I think some of the blue that helps to, calm them down and stuff. This is very different from UPS and FedEx. UPS and FedEx, your fish go to a sorting center, and then at the sorting center, they're trucked there, and then they're trucked from the airport to the sorting center. They sit in the sorting center, they get sorted, then they're trucked back to an airport, and then they're taken it to a location, right? And then they're trucked again. It's a very long, multi-location process. It puts the fish through, it can't help but put the fish through some kind of trauma. This air cargo minimizes the trauma tremendously. So it really is the way to go if you're going to invest in some good quality fish that are going to cost you some money. Air cargo is the way to go. So you can use Ben Southwest lowercase 50, flat rate of $50, up to 50 pounds on orders of $100 or more. And you'll have to go to the airport, but you'll get Southwest cargo. So those are the new codes. The new codes available with the Cichlid Shack, and each week we'll have a featured fish, some featured fish, and James and I are going to work on it. And if you've sent pictures to people with a phone, and I mean, you know that sometimes we're working on how to improve the quality of the photos, but you can tell these are beasts, and almost at their full size. And so, at any rate, if you want to jump right into full size fish, there's no better way to go. All right, let's get your thoughts. Let's get your comments. And I'm going to go ahead and cruise the chat here. I think somebody hit me with a super chat. Let me see here. Vibes Aquatics. Thank you, my friend. Reminding everybody to hit the like button. Thank you, Vibes. Appreciate that, my friend. All right. All right, let me see that. Let's look at this chat here. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them now as I cruise the chat. Paul Newman, about to start water changes. How much do you change, Paul? Do you change more than 50%? Or do you, I used to change like 80% when I first got going. And again, this might not be the case for tanks that are not as mature, but I have found that 30% water change once a week is working out fine, keeping my nitrates around 20 to 40, and I don't really worry about nitrates anyway, but that just gives me an indication of how things are going. And at any rate, that's been working for me. Now, Saline Aquatics, talking about Gatorade, putting Gatorade in your aquarium. Oh, jeez. Let's see here. Somebody commented on the lighting. The aquarium behind me has a couple of the, I think I've got 2 JCMP in the back of the aquarium, and in the front I have the best fish, that RGB. It's controlled with an app, and I have it set up so it's all automatic all day long. So it starts to ramp up with a sunrise, moonlight sunrise, then goes into gradual sun, and then goes into the bright, which you see now. This is 30%, what you see behind me. This is a 30%. So it's very, so it's 100 watt, it's a 100 watt light, but I'm only using 30% of it. So I'm using less wattage than you would normally use, than the light, than the full 100 watts. But I'll show you the, let's see here, lighting scenes. So right now, okay, so the brightness is at 30%. Let me show you what this thing can do. We go up to 80%. How much brighter that is. Almost too bright. I don't like it that bright. So that's 80%. So I'll take it back to 30. %, and you have a whole variety of colors you can choose from. This is called sunlight, and they have a thing called fish light. I'm not sure what the difference is. Some of them look very, very close to each other. This is called fish light. That's not bad. I don't mind it. Anyway, lots of choices. This is the app. I don't know if you can see it. any rate, a best fish, all one word, and it's all controllable on your phone. Kind of a new thing for me. I know there's a lot of apps out there, and somebody is sending me something that regulates a whole bunch of other parameters in your aquariums that is working off of your internet, off of your Wi-Fi, and they're sending it to me to test it. It's going to be very interesting. It actually gives you readings on your phone on things like nitrates, temperature, and things like that. You have a sensor that you put in the aquarium, and they just said, "Hey, do you want to test it?" And I said, "Sure." They're sending me one, so I'll let you know how that goes. That should be very, very interesting. All right, let's get back to the chat here and see what comes up. Rocky and Miles, love that name. And Rocky and Miles, I wish I had the room for larger tanks, but the largest I can do is 20 gallons. But I have 6 total tanks. Well, so you've got you've got 120 gallons going there. But so what is it, Rocky? Is it a limited footprint? You have a limited amount of space, or is it a weight consideration? Well, I'm curious the biggest you can go is 20, but you have 6 of them. So do you have them stacked? Be interesting to me how that is the way it is, but that's yeah, very often that's the key. The key is the space limitation. Somehow I thought I was going to end up inside the house, but somehow I ended up with the garage as my fish room, and it's actually working out very, very well because I'm out of the way. I can stream and not worry about having all my equipment set up and blocking the bedroom or blocking a hallway or blocking something. So I can just, it really is sort of like the proverbial man cave. I've got this man cave down here, and so it's been it took a lot of work. I'm still not done, but I've got a space heater running. I've got insulation on the garage door that I put on. I've had a lot of electrical work done, had a sink put in. I have special LED lights on the ceiling. It's taken a lot, and that's where my Patreon Garage Gang members, super chatters, subscribers, you folks all help in that because it's been a long process to take just an uninsulated garage and turn it into something that can support keeping fish. But the fact that I have a concrete floor that I had painted in this speckled blue, that has given me a tremendous amount of relief because I was damaging, in the last place I was at, some of you know, I damaged my hardwood floors learning about sumps, and my sumps don't overflow anymore now that I know about them. When I tested the plumbing, yeah, there was some water. But I'll tell you, having a concrete floor that I don't worry about damaging, that's amazing. The fact that my floor is tilted downward towards the door of the garage, that's kind of a pain in the rear because every tank has to go through a leveling process using tiles and things like that because I have a few degrees slant going this way, and so my tanks are all off a little bit, but using tile and things like that, I'm able to get it going. But yeah, location availability is key. Z-Zip, small tanks require more attention. I suggest trying a plenum in a small tank, which should yield you more of a balance. Yeah, I don't know much about that type of a setup, Z-Zip. I've heard a lot about it. That's the Dr. Novak. And yeah, anything that can create some type of a bacteria rich, sort of area that the water can flow over and through is going to be great. Julian DeGura. Julian, I'm from Malta. Been now 1 year. I follow you and really use advice. I have a 125 tank. Have a lot of green algae from the glass. Does the UV sterilizer work? UV sterilizers, yes, they can help. The UV sterilizer can help. I don't have an algae problem, and I don't have UV sterilizers. So how much sunlight is hitting your aquarium? How long do you have your lights on? And what are your phosphate levels? Those would be my first things that I'd be interested in finding out. You probably have, you might have a substrate that's releasing phosphates, or decor that's releasing phosphates, or phosphates coming in through your water supply. There are some phosphate down products you can buy to add to the water, some phosphate filter pads you can buy. I would probably get a phosphate test done first, and limit, maybe cut back by 20-30% the amount of time that your lights are on, and make sure that no direct sunlight is hitting your aquarium. Those would be the steps I would take first before I would invest in a UV sterilizer. If you want a UV sterilizer, you're going to have to set up a slow pump, a separate pump that moves the water slowly, and get what is called a twist, a UV twist. It's a light that is actually literally twisted that emits UV, and the water runs by it a lot slower than it would normally run. Like, let's say you have a sun canister that is moving 300 gallons an hour, and there's a 9-watt UV light in there. That's giving you a little bit of water clarification. It's not killing spores. It's not going to help that much with algae. It's definitely not going to do anything about viruses, spores, bacteria. What you want is a twist, a slow flow twist that gives the water maximum exposure with a higher wattage, like 25 watts, and you'll need a pump for that, right? And you'll need some plumbing. So otherwise, don't waste your time with UV. The Sun 704B, I don't even use the UV. It's off. I don't even use it ever. It's a 9-watt trying to treat water with UV that's going by at 200-300 gallons an hour. It's not going to do much. And when it was working, I'd use it only on weekends. Mr. Kevin KJ, 2002. I'm working on a 90 Peninsula. I built the stand today, gluing up acrylic, making internal sump, going to put South American cichlids, grow-out tank, in a grow-out tank for 1 to 1.5 years, then making 220 plus gallon. Wow, that's awesome. What an awesome project. For those of you not familiar, a Peninsula tank, it was the 150 gallon I had in California. It's a tank that has all of the filtration on one side of the aquarium, like on the, let's say on the right wall is where you'd have your overflow box. And you can put that tank, you could put the tank on a part of the house that separates 2 rooms, and people would be able to see through the tank, and there would be nothing. There'd be no filtration, no heaters, nothing, just tank. Everything is on one side. And that's called a peninsula, right? Because it sticks out, it can stick out into a room, and you have unobstructed view of the aquarium, and they're very, very pretty. Peninsula tank. The tank I had in California was designed as a Peninsula tank, and the person drilled the back of it. So at that point, it couldn't be used as a real Peninsula tank, which was fine. I ended up using it as a tank against the wall anyway, but just kind of funny that somebody would take a tank like that and then drill the back of it. I'm not complaining. I got a 150 gallon tank on Craigslist with a custom made stand and a sump included for $400. 150 gallon acrylic tank with canopy and stand, custom made, and sump, $400. That was a great deal. Great deal. Sold it for about that much. I passed it. I played it forward. Kind of wish I'd kept that aquarium. Peas and haps forever. What do you think of the following fish? Intermediates are beautiful. They are like an Autopharynx tetrastigma. Just be sure that it's a true intermedius and not an Autopharynx tetrastigma, which is sometimes mislabeled as an intermedius. So be sure of that. Blue orchid, beautiful fish, tends to go very dark on a dark background with dark substrate, but beautiful fish, blue orchid. I am not familiar with the third one that you put there, peas and haps. Spilorory, I can't even pronounce it. Spilorhinocus, don't even know what the heck that is. But those first two, gorgeous fish. If any of you know what a spinoloro, if one of you know what that fish is, go ahead and comment and help out Peas and Haps forever. Oh my goodness. Dave Abbey, I have a 75-gallon tank. I started up 5 days ago with a 304B from my 150 and 2 sponges from it. I installed 8 fit. Well, that tank should be good to go. I mean, you've got some good beneficial bacteria. I wouldn't add a tremendous amount of fish at once because that was on a, that 304 was on a smaller tank. But yeah, you could gradually start to add more fish and, 3 or 4 at a time. And that canister should keep up. If you have any worries, you always can condition the tank. Fritz Complete, Sechem Prime. I'll throw a little Fritz Zyme 7 in there just to kind of give that whole thing a little bit of a jump start. But you should be fine. Just be sure that you don't use tap water that isn't conditioned and expose that tap water to the canister. Be sure everything's conditioned before you run it through the canister. Otherwise, you'll kill off the canister bacteria. So just watch that. Let's see here. So yes, James is mentioning that you folks are the first to see those Shack's Choice fish. They're probably not even on the web page. So if you want those fish from Shack's Choice, you can actually place an order and say, I want the Calico Ivory Head Melodo that was featured, or the Skittles, or the Fireline. Of course, first come, first serve. Just say, I wanted that fish that was featured on the live stream, and I want to take advantage of Shack Attack 15 if you're over $100, right? You got to be over $100. Or I want to pay a flat rate for the shipping up to 50 pounds. You can use either one of those codes until the end of January. Thank you, James, for pointing that out. Appreciate that. And let's see here. Back to your questions. Julian is asking what algae eater is good with cichlids. Julian, I've had luck with bushy nose. I like bushy nose. They don't get too large. Cichlids tend to leave them alone. Definitely provide some hiding spots. Either some cichlid caves, you can pick those up, those ceramic cichlid caves. I think the co-op has them. Or just, some rocks and things that the pleco can get into that the cichlids can't. And he'll be okay. He'll be okay. Frank Gonzalez, my fish are not eating. What can I do? Man, oh man. That's not good. That's not, that's a bad situation. It's just a bad indicator that something is wrong. My first question, have you tested your water? Is everything okay? Because if it's all of them, that means something is wrong in general. So something's wrong. Something's wrong. Test your water. Make sure you don't have any ammonia, any nitrite, anything else goofy going on. Make sure your temperature is in the right parameter. in the right range. And then what I would do is my first line of attack on fish that will not eat is to use something that they normally find irresistible. And if you have, let's say, South American cichlids, Central American, or community fish, I would try something like bloodworms. Bloodworms are really hard to pass up. You may want to add some garlic guard, add a little garlic to maybe to the food. Have you had a recent change in the food you're using? Maybe they just don't like the food. Maybe the food has gotten a little bit stale. But you've got to change something, and you have to change it quick. You change your food, add some garlic. With my larger cichlids, I'll feed them frozen krill, and again, I might soak it in garlic guard. I just give them something that's irresistible. Now, if they don't eat something that's irresistible, or they don't eat after I've changed the food, you have a bigger problem. You might have an aquarium-wide parasite issue, in which case you're going to need to treat the aquarium for parasites. You're going to have to do something that's going to eliminate parasites. There are various choices out there. I've used the Paracleanse, but there are less expensive choices you can use than Paracleanse. Especially if you're in a larger tank, it can get real expensive real fast. But that's a tough one. That could lead to a lot of things. Do you have any indications on the body? Do you have any markings on the body? For example, if there's a white band appearing behind the dorsal fin, a vertical band, a white band, you might have the beginnings of Colmenares. Is there any kind of velvet or fungus anywhere? Is there anything showing up around the mouth? Any kind of like what looked like sores or fungus? It could be something like that, in which case you need to hit it with maybe a API Gentle Cure or something like that. So it could be a variety of things. Okay, anybody want to chime in on what you would suggest for fish not eating? There's also a video called Fish... I think it was a video I released a while back called Fish Not Eating. But anyway, chime in what you would suggest on a problem like that, because that can be a bad situation. I hope it resolves for you, Frank, and you don't end up with a lot of fish loss. Joe doesn't like going to the airport. Yeah, I know some airports are inconvenient. And for those folks, something like Southwest Air Cargo is not going to work. And Fish Ranch says that in San Francisco, they want to open up all the boxes and check for snails. And interesting. They must have had some kind of invasive situation going on there. All right. I am cruising the chat, and that is what I'm doing. Hey, Whips World in the house. Good to see you. And Solar King Ronnie. All the best people are here today. Let's see here. Peas and haps. Jerry's Fish Room, you're thinking about quarantining 2 African cichlids in a 20-gallon? My first question would be if they get along. If not, you're going to need a divider until you can put them into a larger population, because 2 African cichlids is 2 to tango, man. That's they could get into it with each other, and then you've got a problem that's going to lengthen the amount of quarantine time, because they're going to have to recover from their injuries. And unfortunately, the fight can occur while you're sleeping, so you don't discover it till the next morning. But if they get along, 2 in a 20-gallon, I would add a air stone I would add an air stone just to make sure you have lots of oxygen, because a fish that size, they consume a lot of oxygen, and a 20-gallon might be a little lean for them. But yeah, it should be okay. I'm looking at a 20-gallon. Yeah, it should be okay. Make sure you have a nice tight lid, because in a tank that small, if they're startled, they will go out the top and ask me how I know. So that's how I lost my my Placidochromis johnsoni. I put him in a tank that was small, and something startled him, and I found him on one of my beagles found him on the floor. Let's see here. The cichlid check. Ben is trying to say Spilanotus Tanzania. That could be it. That could be it. That's a pretty fish, if I remember correctly. Cichlid kings. Keep the slack out of those hoses at setup. Good tip. If you're using any kind of a hose, either as the connection point for the pumps on a sump or the canister hoses, don't let those things go way out. Now, you do have to have a little bit of slack so you can move the canister underneath the aquarium, right? We need to move it and service it, what have you. But don't leave a lot of slack, a lot of loop. It just makes it very inefficient and makes it harder to prime. So good advice. Good advice from Cichlid Kings. And because it came from the king, it is an order that must be followed in the realm. Right, John? All right, Solar King Ronnie, thank you for your prayers. Enjoy your best. I like some great people. Very true, Solar King. Wichita Falls Fish Keeper. I have not been to Wichita Falls. So they are listed as Shack's Choice. Okay, good. So the fish we showed are now listed on the web page. And Frank has chimed in. And hello to you, Frank. I'm glad you're here, my friend. And Jerry's Fish Room. I quarantined 2 electric blue Ochara that were 5 inches each in a 20-liter, which is, I think, smaller, right, than a 20-gallon. And they did fine. So there you go. They're not as aggressive as your cichlids, so you probably didn't have to worry as much about aggression. Fishy Dior, I have a canister that runs but won't stop gurgling. You have air in your canister. Make sure the water line is above the intake and the certainly above the output and the intake, of course. Make sure your output isn't above the water line, and unplug it and let it fill up as much as it can from siphon, and then start it up again and rock it back and forth a little bit. Burp it like you're burping a baby, rock it back and forth. Maybe one of the moderators can share the video. I think it's called Too Loud, and it's 5 tips on getting a canister filter to quiet down. And one of the biggest problems is air in the canister. If that doesn't work, make sure that you haven't overloaded your baskets. If your baskets are too full and they're not sitting on top of each other so that they're snapped in place, they're loose, and let's say maybe your impeller isn't seated correctly, the impeller isn't really exactly where it's supposed to be, it's going to do what is called cavitation. It's going to produce air. It's going to produce bubbles because it's wobbling as opposed to turning perfectly in place. So be sure that your impeller, make sure your baskets are not overfilled. Make sure your impeller, the baskets overfilled is probably not going to impact that as much, but the impeller not being exactly in place, top and bottom, exactly where it's supposed to go, and the housing snapped down and really nailed down correctly. Because if it's wobbling at all, you're going to get cavitation. This is if you study nautical stuff, if a submarine or a ship hits the rudder against something, is very precisely, it's engineered and set up, built up precisely. If it's a little dent or something, and when it spins, it cavitates, it loses a tremendous amount of efficiency, and so it wastes a lot of gas. So that the impeller has to be perfect. Same thing in your canister. That impeller has to be perfectly in place, or you're going to get bubbles. Aye, matey. So let's see here. Whips World hit me with a super chat. Thank you, my friend. How would you go about adding fish to it again? The water is testing okay right now with $2 silver. Well, Whips World, I would add 2 more silver dollars, because they love hanging out in packs, right, in schools. And maybe a couple of what other fish you want to add. Maybe add about 4 more fish. Do it on a gradual basis and let the bacteria, beneficial bacteria, catch up with the addition of the fish. Again, you can always treat the water. You can always add a little bit of bacteria in a bottle. You can always add some filter media from an established tank as you add fish. And, everything on a gradual basis when you're setting up a new tank. Whips World accidentally forgot to turn your filter back on. Oh, man. That's happened. I've done that too. I mean, you get busy, you get distracted, you're done with cleaning, you walk off, you go have something to eat, and next morning you got a problem. And especially if your filter was breaking up the surface for oxygen. So, yeah, sorry to hear about that. Almost makes you want to work off of a checklist. Like a flight checklist. Okay, I finished my maintenance. Let me see. Heaters plugged in, check. Light timers reset, check. Plugged in filter, check. Okay, we're good for takeoff. Solar King, zucchini and garlic. I guess are you suggesting, Solar King, some irresistible food? Or somebody is asking about Oscara? Let's see here. I am looking at the chat. Fishy Dior, I use DIY dividers. DIY dividers work. They work. I used to use those diffusers, ceiling diffusers. I mean, small fish will get through them, but larger fish, you can put a fluorescent light fixture diffuser. You can cut them to the right shape, drop them in, embed them in the substrate, and they work okay. A big fish can knock one over. Luke Biba, the hardest part of the canister filter is getting hoses straight from being coiled up in the box. Fill your sink up with the hottest water you can and put them in there, and then let them sit in there for a little bit, then pull them out and straighten them out, and they should be okay. Just soak them in hot water. Peas and haps forever. Yep, I hear you. Sometimes you put them into a confined environment and they got along fine in a big tank with a lot of tank mates. You put them together, just the two of them, it just turns into a battle royale. And, hey, there's not enough room in here for the two of us, so I'm going to have to kill you. And it's between that and oxygen, an oxygen issue, Leslie Perry, that's okay. I almost forgot it was Saturday, too. I have an alarm set up on my phone. Goes off at 10 a.m. Central Time every Saturday, and it says live at 11. So in case I had a couple beers with my son the night before. I got to make sure I get going. Deborah Moon, let me see. Hello, Ben. A bit since I stopped by for a visit. Well, thank you, Deborah. I appreciate you stopping by. Very informative forum here. Appreciate you, what you do. Thank you so much. Appreciate that very much. Luke Biba, yes. Light diffusers are good for underneath the substrate, so that when you put heavy rocks, they disperse the weight of the rock, so you don't have that rock hitting on a particular point. And anyone who's ever cracked the bottom of an aquarium knows that that is a severe 911. That's one of those situations where you have to have a tub, like that 911 tub I posted on Instagram. Because your fish, assuming you catch it in time, right? Because your tank is just going to empty out. So if you catch it, you pour tank water into the tub, transfer your fish over immediately, and go find another tank, because that tank is done. Whip's World, I bought a bottle of Fritz beneficial bacteria, but it only treats a total of 40 gallons. It's a 150. Yep. Also make sure it's not expired. All right. Salient Aquatics. If I turn your heaters horizontal, lower in the tank when you do water changes, don't go below heaters. This is a big issue. You know, folks get into water changes, especially big water changes, and they go below the safe point on their heater. There are heaters now, like the Hygers that I have in the big tanks, and the aquarium co-op heaters, which I'm going to be doing a video on, that have sensors in them that will turn off the heater in the event that the water line goes low. Putting them horizontal near the bottom of the tank, that works, and that way you don't have to worry about them. You don't have to unplug them. Or if you are using the aquarium co-op heaters, which I'll show you one. This is the an aquarium co-op heater. This is a 50-watt. Very sexy design. And I'm happy to announce that the suction cups work very, very well. It will actually shut off if you go below the water line, but you don't want to do that. You know, you don't want to. I'd rather not run the heater through that process. You know, better just position it low in the tank. You can even go, it's so small and compact that you don't have to go sideways. Just put it low in the tank, and just make sure your water change doesn't go below it. It has a very easy on-off set switch here, or a set switch on an 11-foot cord, 11 feet of cord, which I hate having a short cord. So very nice little heater. I'm going to do a review on them. And I tell you what I like the most about them is the readout. The readout is big and bright. So you're not turning something on the top and waiting for the light to go on and then checking the thermometer in your aquarium. No, it gives you a big number that you can see. And so it's just very easy to work with. So I've been very impressed with them, and I'll do a full product review on them very shortly. I've been talking to Corey about them. He filled me in on some of the construction of the heater. And so I'll be sharing that with you in an upcoming video. All right, let's see here. I'm cruising the chat. Yeah, Whip Swirl. That Fritz stuff can get expensive, you know. But again, that's one of those things like we talked about in the very beginning of the stream. Adding some bacteria to a 10-gallon tank, adding some meds to treat fish in a 10-gallon tank, very different from getting into a 150-gallon, 125, 300-gallon. Your cost goes up tremendously. So you start buying those big bottles, right? Those big giant, gallon plus bottles of everything, because that's what you need. Leslie Perry, I plug all of my heaters and filters, air pumps into power strips. That way I don't forget to flip the switch. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. That works. As long as you remember to turn on your power strip. Depends how tired you are. How distracted. But yeah, flip that power strip back on. That's a great way to go. And where I got that heater, the horizontal idea, was from discus breeders. Discus breeders say that discus would go and try and lay their eggs on a heater, and they would end up getting damaged. Their body would get damaged. If the heater was running, the heat would damage them. And so they just put the heaters horizontal low in the tank so the discus wouldn't lay their eggs on it. Angelfish will do the same thing, right? So I thought, well, wait a minute. Well, if I can do that, that way I don't have to turn them off when I do water changes. Just put them low in the tank and horizontal. So yeah, that power strip is a good idea. See, we all learn from each other around here. It really is true. So, Tadoka Barnes, would you recommend a Placidochromis Johnsoni long-term for a 75-gallon? No, I think Tadoka, I think a Placidochromis Johnsoni in a 75 would be okay. I think it'd be okay. I mean, they get about 6 inches in captivity, maybe in the wild, maybe they go 7, but I think it'd be okay in a 75. Put some more Placidochromis in there, maybe put throw a few peacocks in there. You could probably maybe put around 10 or so. Maybe a small hap, a couple small haps. I think it'd be fine, like a Z-Rock, little Z-Rock. I think it'd be fine. Put a couple bushy nose, maybe a few of those long whiskered catfish. Let's see here. Yeah, I think it'd be good. Just put plenty of filtration. Keep that water nice and pristine. On a 75-gallon, I'd put a couple canisters or a canister and a hang-on back. Just over filter it a little bit. Get around 10. Get in that sweet spot of 5 to 10 time turnover per hour, closer to 10, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Nice pristine water. Good tank mates, and enough tank mates to spread out aggression. You'll be fine. Mo's tanks, you don't want to have your heater touching anything. Mo's asking, have you ever seen a heater melt a nylon media bag? I recently went into the sump underneath the 300 to check on the Higer, I think it's 1,000 watt, to make sure it wasn't touching the pumps, the Shisei pumps. The heaters get very, very hot, really, really hot, and they will, I think they would actually, they could conceivably melt nylon, or at least deform it, so don't risk it. Make sure the heaters are on the wall of the tank and not resting against anything that could possibly react to heat. Yeah, Leslie, you'd have to really be out of it to go, I'm done, and walk away and just have the aquarium sitting there as just still water. But I assure you, it's happened. You know, people get distracted these days. You know, someone's filling their tank, and let's be honest. I mean, how many of you out there will admit you're filling your tank? You go onto social media, you start responding to a text, you start checking Instagram or Facebook, and you look and you've got water on the floor. People get distracted, and when they're distracted, they lose track of time, they lose track of what they're doing, or they wander off and they get into something else, and it just happens. It just happens. I mean, it unfortunately, it just happens. All right. You know, we're 11 minutes over, and I'm going to be using up your whole weekend here. So we need to wrap things up here. Did I miss any super chats? If I did, I'm sorry. But I thank any of you who have super chatted today. And Warren, I missed your super chat. Wish I could donate more to you. Your influence in the hobby is so beneficial. I officially keep African cichlids now with Crebensis. With Crebensis? That's interesting. Okay, so just small African cichlids. Thanks again for all you do. You are welcome, Warren. I appreciate super chats, regardless of the amount, and I thank you for your support and the nice, kind words. And let's see, Whips World. I think I did get your super chat, and I think I got everybody. Okay, so with that being said, hey Thomas, goodbye to you as well. Goodbye, Paul and ZZip, Fish Ranch. Man, some great people here today. Thank you to all my wonderful moderators. And of course, a big shout out to James over at the Cichlid Shack for his ongoing support. And don't forget, if you want to pick up one of those Shack's Choice, get over to the Shack before they're gone. Use one of the discounts. Shack Attack 15 expires at the end of this month. And you can use any order over 100. You can use either Shack 15 or the new code Ben SW50 for a flat rate on shipping on Southwest Cargo. Means you have to go to the airport. Don't forget. All right. Thank you, my friends. You are the best. And with that, I will see you next week. Thank you, my friends. Bye-bye for now.